following are the words of Lou Civello, President of the Suffolk County Police Benevolent Association.
Police officers risk their lives to protect our communities and keep our streets safe. These officers are the thin blue line that stands between your family and the criminals that would do them harm. We are your neighbors, protecting your neighborhood. Hold the line. Support law enforcement. Stand with the Suffolk County PBA.
The following radio show is live, except for the announcement you're hearing right now.
Welcome back to Your Island Live with your host, Tom Schiliro, on 103.9 LI News Radio.
And once again, welcome back. Moving right along as promised. We have with us the president, as we do every other week, the president of the Suffolk County PBA, Lou Civello. Just talk what we do in most instances. We talk about what's happening inside the police department in terms of our membership is concerned. The members of the PBA, the men and women that are really out there on the front lines, the patrol division, and also the other different various units that encompass our police officers. And it's so great to have Lou on because there's so many different issues that go on every single day about policing in America and policing on Long Island. So let's say hello. Lou Civello, how are you?
Hey, Tom, good afternoon. I'm doing well. Always great to join you and your audience here.
You know, I got a call the other day. It was kind of interesting. It was during this. We had all that snow going on and all that other stuff. And the person said to me, "There's something going on across the street." The fire department wasn't there yet, and you know that the first responders are our officers. Our officers are in the sector cars are in the neighborhoods, so they'll get there. We have great response for the fire departments. We know that from rescue. We know that, but our officers are usually there first. So a lot of times the police have to somehow improvise before rescue gets there. And even though our officers are EMT and they carry all of the different equipment that is necessary, albeit if it even is a fire or what have you, they're the first ones there. Well, it turned out that might have been 3 years old, a child, 4 years old, on the second floor of a very steep roof. Those kind of like it was almost like a colonial house, but it had a steep roof to it. And so it was high up, something I don't like. I don't like height. The child opened up, I guess, the screen on the upper floor there and crawled out on the peak of the roof, during the time when there was snow on the roof and so on. So, officers got there, and this was being reported to me while it was happening. And, the police did not hesitate. They could have waited, I guess, for the cherry picker to come, I guess, fire department. But they went into the house and they crawled out of the window and got on the peak and waited with the child until the better means to get off the roof arrived. But they did that. Now, you may not think that's a big deal. I did. I thought it was a big deal. But it's not like we don't get that much information. We meaning in this country. You won't know that. And I think that people don't know that. And I know it's a small event, Lou, but I bring it up to you so that, we could comment on that and say how I think in many cases our officers are being shortchanged to the type of work that they do. What say you, Lou?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. And I can tell you, speaking as a parent, that, that's no small thing to a parent. If it's your child that possibly, fall off that roof, God forbid, and get hurt or killed. You don't want the police officer to wait for a cherry picker. You want action. You want quick thinking. You want adaptability. And that's what you have in our police officers. I mean, they just do so much outside of what you would normally think a police officer does. And with all this snow, 2-3 feet of snow, our officers were out there shoveling in some cases, right? We had people trapped in their homes, elderly people that are wheelchair bound, that cannot shovel their own driveways. Some of the required equipment we carry is a shovel in the trunk to be able to, in situations like this, to adapt, to think quick, to go out and protect that child that's on that roof, to act quickly. It's just a tremendous job by our police officers. They do that sort of tremendous work every day. Not everyone makes the newspaper. I commend them for their actions and for bringing that child to safety. Again, it just shows their dedication, bravery, and how quickly they are able to think on their feet.
Right. And again, I just want people to know this was not a flat roof. As you know, I don't know if you've ever gone up on a roof. I try not to ever because I got a thing against heights, whatever. The mere fact of trying to then come out of a window as a grown adult, not as a child, to now position yourself in such a way that you can make it up to the peak, which is what they had to do. And so thinking about all of that, and I thought that would be a story I would bring up while you were on, so that we can at least underscore that having this job is a lot more than what people think. Too many times there's more negative press today on our offices. Maybe it has something to do with federal law enforcement and what they mean, and the fact that there are so many politicians degrading our law enforcement, federal level, state level, local level, and so on. And I think today we need, and I don't want to say fight back because it's not a fight, but we need to educate, Lou. And I think that's a big part. And I know the PBA does that. And I think maybe we ought to double down, not just the Suffolk PBA, but I think organizations throughout this country need to, jump on the bandwagon and say, hey, wait a minute, we're going to tell you how it's really like, Lou.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the saying goes, if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it over and over. The anti-ICE movement is very akin to the defund the police movement. And there is this goal to divide law enforcement, to do exactly what they did to local law enforcement just a few years ago, to demonize, to take every negative interaction, which is in the minority and the minute part of what the interactions that these federal officers have, and to highlight those and make it seem like it's a racist gang running around pulling kids out of schools. And in that case, what you do is you deride the ability for us to do our work overall. You devalue our value as police officers. You put the handcuffs on the police. And I'm just watching it happen again, just this time on the federal level. So I think it's important for us to push back. They're there to do their jobs. In no instance are we not going to respond and help when we have a federal officer calling for us. I think that is a non-starter in terms of how we interact with our federal partners. And really, we should be helping them get the worst of the worst, the criminals, the violent gang members, the sexual predators. I think almost everybody could. Why is that even a question? They should be working with local law enforcement to get those people out of our country.
I think the governor's bill, I read it again, and, this whole idea of she's trying to spin it as we're going to do more for public safety for the residents of New York State. And she's only doing that because she's trying to spin it in such a way so that maybe more moderate voters will vote for her, thinking that she's trying to protect me. That's why I'm going to vote for him. But in reality, she's calling for no cooperation in that bill that she has. I don't know if you have more information about it than I do, but that local law enforcement should stick to their own affairs and not cooperate with federal law enforcement. When I think that's detrimental, I think the organizations, the federal, the feds, the state, and the locals all work together and have always worked together very well, which is why we have some of the lowest crime rates in places like Nassau and Suffolk County and so on. I think that's a big part of it. And whether she's going to be successful or not, I don't know. You have any word on that bill she's pushing?
She is pushing it, and to be clear, we are against it. So we're against anything that impedes our ability to work with our federal partners. So this bill, it wouldn't go so far as to prevent us from responding when ICE or some federal agency called us in an emergency, right? It does not do that. Okay. However, what it does do is prevents them from using local resources. So they're not going to be able to use the local jails to house, et cetera. I think that is an error. I think we should be laser focused, and there should be some level of agreement from everybody, right? Right up into the governor, where if you have violent criminals and they're in the country illegally, let's focus on them. Let's get it. Can we agree just on that and using local resources for that? Whether or not we need to assist ICE in getting, somebody that's working at a bagel store, that's a whole nother conversation. So, we don't want to be, we don't want to take, we're a union. We don't want to take other people's work. We don't want our officers to be doing ICE's job for them. However, it's our job to keep this community safe. And, a big head start on that is to just get violent criminals, predators out of our country. So we oppose that bill. I'm sure given the makeup of the legislature, she is going to successfully pass it. We have one-party rule in the state, quite unfortunately, but we are advocating to work with our federal partners at the local level.
Yeah. They're doing a comparison now. There was an incident in California where they were letting this this child predator out, a violent child predator out. I think he did something like 15 years or 20 years, and they have an elder parole bill. And for them, elder parole is reaching the age of 55. I think the New York bill reaching the age of 60, as long as you serve 15 years, even though you may have gotten multiple life sentences, that you will become eligible for parole. They were going to let him out, and they did actually, but they rearrested him when he came back. As soon as they released him, they arrested him again because there was a case against him that they dropped because he got life in prison. Well, life in prison is not life in prison anymore in California, and it isn't in New York either. So that created a large stir. How do police officers feel when they go through all of the trouble of arresting somebody, particularly somebody who's committed a sex offense, a violent sex offense, a crime against a child, a violent crime, a carjacking that resulted in serious physical injury and so on, when the law doesn't cover the nature of the severity of the crime?
No, we feel absolutely demoralized, devalued, and disgusted, Tom. You risked your life to lock these people up to protect the community, and to have them just walk free, it totally demoralizes you as a police officer, somebody that wears a uniform. And I can tell you, we just got word that Sergeant Timothy Hank, killer, cop killer.
Yeah, I remember that case. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tell me what's happening there. I remember that case.
Right. Yeah. Dragged to his death.
Yes.
And yet here another cop killer in New York State, yet another one is going to walk free. You're not restoring that family. You're not restoring their loved one. Sergeant Hank, fallen hero.
Yes.
Names on the memorials, devastating to that family, to our police family, and yet this person is going to be out in the light of day, enjoying his life. So it's disgusting. It's demoralizing to our officers. And it's just a slap in the face to the families, and it's why it's so difficult when you have one party rule and you have them moving further and further left, because they only seem to want to please that side of the aisle, at least as far as the criminal justice goes. We've made some headway on some other issues that I guess are less controversial, like the tax bill, which we are very appreciative of. They passed a tax exemption bill that will allow those widows to have a 50% discount on their taxes.
Yes.
School has to opt in, et cetera. We're working on that very hard, getting the school boards to opt in. And again, we are appreciative. But however, and I'll echo, one of our line of duty families that was quoted in the New York Post. You'd rather have your loved one. So if you really care about these line of duty families, these heroes, well, then you change some of the bail reform. You stop letting these, because we don't want any more, right? We don't want this to occur again and again. So the tax break is great. Very, very appreciative of it. But at the same time, we wish we could make a little bit more headway on some common sense changes so we don't have another police officer killed in the line of duty.
Yeah. But Lou, was that a release by the parole board on the Hank?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember. It's a radical left-wing parole board. It just has no compunction about putting these killers back on the street.
Yeah, I remember. I was actually working that night. I remember hearing it on the command band. I'm in shock now when you said that. I'm absolutely in shock that would even be considered. All right, let's go to that mayor over there in New York City with the snow incident. Did you see the press conference he did about the snow incident?
I did. Vile and horrendous for him to dismiss that gang assault. You watch that video and your blood just boils. You have New York City police officers severely outnumbered, being attacked violently. You watch in one instance, someone grabs a chunk of ice and smashes it in the back of the police officer's head. Sustained injuries, end up going to the hospital, out of work. And the mayor of New York City makes it as if it were two 9-year-olds playfully tossing snowballs. Oh, it's just a snowball fight. What a disgrace. Completely has discredited himself as having any support for the NYPD. He should be ashamed. And I tell you, I don't know how you get up and put that uniform on as a New York City police officer, because they are just made into punching bags by this mayor.
And you were a New York City police officer, and you certainly could remember what it was like to go into the city. And I know many of the city police officers that had pride in their job. I can't imagine having pride in your job anymore. And I don't even want to say this on the air because you want to give the support to NYPD as much as you can. But when I saw that press conference, I just shook my head and wonder what can be done. I mean, New York City Police Department, their PBA, has got to be up in Albany all the time. They probably have a permanent staff up there to try to get laws passed to support our men and women in New York City. And when you have a mayor that is show that much disdain for the uniform and for the justice system and for what they represent, that's absolutely disgusting, Lou.
Yeah, and Tom, they're doing the job despite that mayor, despite him. I mean, these are people who it's not just a job, it's a vocation. They take incredible pride in the job, and they do a tremendous job. You look at right now our brave men and women overseas that are out there protecting our country. And what happens? You have New York City as probably the number one terrorist target in the world. Yeah. And you have this mayor, canceling the hiring of officers, diminishing their ranks. So despite him, they are doing their very best to protect this city. And we fully support them. We fully support their PBA and their union. So I know we're fighting very hard for their members. But just the mayor in the short time that he has held the office is an abject failure.
Yeah. Now, is there any type of legislation that it could at least protect police officers from being the subject of those type of attacks that many people might not see as rising to the level of obstruction of justice or menacing or harassment? Can something be more specific where maybe you can get through a far left, we love criminal legislatures? Because that's basically what we have in Albany.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem is twofold, Tom. One is you need tougher laws. We support a bill that would make police officers a protected class, that if you targeted a police officer for being a police officer, that you would face heightened penalties. But the other problem is that, listen, there are laws in place that could have been used to hold these people accountable. But you have these woke DAs that are bought and paid for by the Soroses of the world, that, the NYPD does a great job of tracking them down, charging them with a higher charge, and the DA just says, no thanks, charge dismissed. So even if you have the correct laws, I mean, these DAs have a lot of autonomy. You have, these horrendous DAs that are only interested in, serving the radical left wing that are outright dismissing the charges. So, you need to mount some sort of fight on these DAs. You need to get them the hell out of office. Just like they did over in L.A. And that's the only way that you're going to bring some sanity back.
You think there's a culture, and we only have a couple of minutes left, but there's a culture that was created where, again, witnessing what happened to those NYPD officers, with the snow incident and the crowd and how they seemed to think that was okay. That's all right. They're cops and whatever. Do you think that there's a culture there that was created that is a lot harder to counteract that culture as opposed to just a few bad people?
Yeah, I think so. I think there certainly is a culture. There's a TikTok culture. I mean, there's a reason a lot of these things are being videoed and put online. Something that we talk to the media about. It even happens out here where they're doing it and they're becoming celebrities by attacking our police officers and antagonizing our police officers. And when you have somebody like Mondami elected, I think that election, you basically send a signal to these people that it's open season. And this is proof of that, this snowball attack. And even more proof is his reaction when he dismisses it. Instead of, having those police officers back, he had the criminals back.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Well, Lou, I know these are busy times for you. Thank you for coming on today. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks, my friend. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, before we go on our commercial break, I did want to add to that whole culture issue with having a mayor like Mondami. When he goes out and he speaks to his community groups or he speaks to his press conferences and so on, there isn't that respect for law and order. It's more about the subjugation of our law enforcement in reference to raising to a hierarchy those people that are committing crimes. And I think that's a big part of what's happening here. And yes, that snow incident that did take place, that was something to look at and something to consider when we try to establish a more law and order society where people can feel safely. And I think that's been a big part of it. In any event, folks, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we've got the district attorney's chief assistant coming on. We'll be right back.